Messalina is one of the most famous and simultaneously most controversial figures in the history of ancient Rome, and her reputation as the most depraved woman to have ever lived in the empire still raises many questions and debates. A legend has developed around her image, which is either supported by historical facts or is merely the product of urban legends and exaggerations. Let's try to understand what is truly hidden behind this myth and how much of it is true. The Roman Empire was an era in which laws were often written in blood, and people's fates were decided not only in courtrooms, but also in the chambers of the wealthy and influential. Here, power was closely linked with lust and passion, and the bodies of people were valued no less than gold and jewels. In this world, full of debauchery and pleasures, a woman appeared whose name would forever remain in history as a symbol of unrestrained depravity and all-consuming passion. This is Valeria Messalina, the wife of Emperor Claudius, young, attractive, and incredibly insatiable in her desires. The young woman was not even 20 when her fate intertwined with that of a man over 50. This man was a scholar, intelligent but awkward, and importantly, already aging. She, on the other hand, was the embodiment of passion, a living personification of desire and seduction. Their union was not merely political or marital, but a real explosion of passions that shook the entire Roman palace. Historians analyzing the era wrote that Messalina was insatiable in love, that nights in her chambers turned into real orgies, and that the participants in these scenes, actors, slaves, gladiators, became common knowledge. She chose her partners at will and often brought them directly into the palace halls, not hiding her passionate pursuits. The empress's bed became an arena where neither morality nor decency nor the usual boundaries of permissible behavior existed. She was unashamed of her desires and did not try to hide them, living as if tomorrow would never come. It was precisely this frankness, this unprecedented openness, that made her name eternal, engraved in history as a symbol of unrestrained depravity. The most famous account of her behavior is a story about her competition with a prostitute. According to legend, which of them could sleep with the most men in one night? In Roman society, this was considered a professional contest for a woman of the brothel, and the winner was supposed to be the one who surpassed her rival. However, Messalina broke all the rules. She managed to sleep simultaneously with 24 men in a row. This fact shocked everyone, and even the competition itself lost its meaning for her because she proved she could do what was considered impossible. As a result, her rival gave up, and the empress remained undefeated. This case forever cemented in the minds of the Romans the image of a woman for whom the body was not a weakness, but a powerful weapon and tool of authority. Myth about her supposed exceptional sexual promiscuity, whether true or not, became part of folk legends and historical chronicles and was forever recorded in the annals of history. For Emperor Claudius, who had to witness this, everything was humiliating. His wife, this woman, seemed foreign to him, belonging to society at large rather than to himself. He appeared to have lost control and authority over his own empress. However, according to some reports, he pretended not to notice, trying to save face and maintain his position. Perhaps he was too deeply in love or afraid of losing face in front of his courtiers and the people. Essentially, the emperor was a weak man, with a stutter, weak legs, and an uncertain character. He was like a puppet in his wife's hands, and Messalina used this to her advantage. Her beauty gave her power, and her passion opened doors to the Tassi, the Suetonian, and Juvenal. Three vivid figures who were hostile to patience and understanding toward women in power. To them, Messalina was nothing but a monster, a symbol of vice and depravity, embodying all that was wicked and dangerous in a woman's nature. Perhaps they exaggerated, and their words contained only part of the truth, since half of the story could have been fictional or exaggerated. However, in Roman culture, rumors carried as much weight and power as real events, sometimes even more destructive. At that time, gossip not only spread quickly, but could also kill, literally like a dagger. Messalina, the emperor's wife, was accustomed to the idea that everything around her was permitted, that power and wealth made her untouchable. She knew well that the emperor turned a blind eye to her actions, that even the most influential men would still be drawn to her, like a magnet. She felt her impunity and the strength that surrounded her, and thus did not think about the consequences. However, one seemingly insignificant and accidental mistake became her fatal turning point. A new person appeared in her life, a man who would later change everything. This was Senator Guy Silius, a young, attractive, and highly ambitious man. He was distinguished not only by his striking appearance, which immediately caught the eye, but also by inner strength and charisma capable of winning any woman. For Messalina, he became not just a lover, but a true passion that completely captured her heart and mind. With Silius's appearance, she lost the caution that had previously restrained her behavior. Their relationship ceased to be hidden in secret. It became public and obvious to everyone around. They lived as husband and wife, and this marked the beginning of her final downfall. Guy Silius was a man impossible to ignore in any company. Tall, strong, with a bright, captivating appearance, he stood out even among the Roman elite with his extraordinary attractiveness. He was called the most handsome man of his time, and this reputation only increased his influence. For Messalina, he became not just a lover, but something more, an addiction that completely consumed her. She stopped seeking one-night entertainments or fleeting passions. Now she had found a man for whom she was willing to challenge even the most powerful person, the emperor. And it was this decision that made her appear mad in the eyes of those around her. Messalina, as she was called by the people, did not hide her relationship with Silius. He openly visited her in the palace, and their relationship ceased to be secret. During the day, they worked together, attended to affairs, wrote letters, or discussed state matters, while at night they threw parties, orgies, and noisy banquets, the talk of all Rome. Their passion was so obvious that even the palace servants could not ignore the fact that the empress was sharing her bed not with her husband, but with her lover. And no one dared to interfere, for she was the wife of the emperor, and no one was allowed to lay a hand on her. However, her passion clouded her judgment, and she began dreaming of more, of power, of complete control. Sources claim that their conversations increasingly included thoughts of eliminating Claudius to gain the upper hand and become the sole ruler. There were even rumors of a conspiracy to get rid of the emperor and then usurp the throne, keeping the title of empress for herself. But even if these rumors were merely figments of imagination, her behavior appeared mad and dangerous. She decided to take an action that shocked the entire Roman elite: a wedding. Yes, an official, grand ceremony that was meant to cement their union before the eyes of the state. Messalina married Silius while her husband, Emperor Claudius, was still alive. This event was not just another crime against marital bonds. It surpassed all bounds of decency and crossed the very line of permissible power. It was an open, uncompromising challenge not only to personal loyalty and family values, but also to the authority of the state itself, its supreme power. At that time, Rome was ablaze. A tense energy filled the air. Senators exchanged glances, discussing what had happened, while the people whispered, watching the spectacle as if in a theater or circus, ready to witness a dramatic showdown. Messalina's enemies, not hiding their joy, awaited her swift downfall as if it were a spectacle in the arena where only one could triumph. All they needed was to push Claudius toward a decision to finally eliminate his rival and strengthen their own power. And the emperor himself, Claudius, was seized with rage and fury, as if a wild storm had overtaken him. He felt like a mockery before the entire city, a husband betrayed by his own wife, a man everyone knew and trusted, now at the center of scandal, became the subject of mockery and condemnation. He felt humiliated, insulted, and powerless, as if he had lost his strength and dignity. The husband, betrayed before the eyes of the entire capital, the emperor who laughs and mocks his own wife. It was unbearable for his pride. At that moment, his soul was filled with sharp pain, and his inner anger began to turn into fury, which could lead to the most dangerous consequences. At the same time, Messalina, her passion and ambitions completely consumed her. She reveled in her game, not thinking about the impending consequences. She lived as if she were already the mistress of Rome, as if her power and influence were infinite and eternal. She saw herself as the mistress of a great city that would sweep away all outdated rules and traditions. And in this blindness, she failed to notice the danger. She did not understand that enemies had already prepared a strike, that their plans were close to realization, and that the end of her reign was already visible on the horizon. Suddenly, everything changed dramatically. The truth about her betrayal and conspiracies was revealed to Claudius by people he trusted. His closest advisors convinced him that immediate action was necessary and that the threat came precisely from Silius, who, according to them, was plotting a coup. The emperor, known throughout his life for his softness and indecisiveness, for the first time showed severity and resolve. He issued an order to arrest Silius, and that very night everything collapsed. Silius was captured right on the street, amidst the noisy city streets, in an instant. He was seized, interrogated, and he understood there was no way out. He did not resist, realizing the hopelessness of the situation. He was instantly executed without lengthy judicial procedures or protracted investigations. This death served as a signal. Now it's Messina's turn. She, overwhelmed with confusion, realized that everything had happened too quickly and too unexpectedly. In panic, she began to seek ways to escape. Despite everything, she tried to contact Claudius, writing him letters, begging for mercy. In her heart, she held on to the hope that he would forgive her, as he had done before, when he forgave her for her misdeeds and sins. She hoped that his love and attachment could overcome anger and hatred, that he would give her a chance to justify herself. But around Claudius, there were already people who hated her, longed for her destruction, and did not want her to have a second chance. At that moment, Messalina experienced her first true fear, a fear that grips the heart when it seems that everything is lost. The one who unconditionally controlled Rome, who turned it into her personal territory, who lived by her own rules like a Narcissus king, one of the emperor's closest and most trusted advisors, persistently convinced him in endless conversations that if she, the woman in question, survived, she could once again cause irreparable harm to him and his state. He insisted that her life was a danger that would sooner or later destroy him, and along with him, mighty Rome. The senators, in turn, whispered behind his back, "She is not a wife, she is an enemy. She ruthlessly slept with everyone who wanted her. She betrayed her husband, married another." This was an act of treason against the state, and it could not be left unpunished. Inside the emperor, conflicting feelings battled. He still loved her, still held hope in his heart for the revival of their love, but the voices around him were insistent and merciless. They demanded her death. They demanded her execution. Claudius, tangled in his emotions and fears, hesitated, caught in an internal struggle. He was afraid to show weakness, afraid that his authority would be undermined by rumors, that the people and the nobility would mock his indecision, and that his throne would fall. Ultimately, he made a difficult decision, which seemed to him the only possible one, to order the destruction of Messalina, the woman who was once his wife and now posed a threat to his power. When the messenger brought her this terrible news, she seemed unable to believe her ears. At first, she could not accept the news, could not believe that she could be betrayed so cruelly. She kept repeating, "Claudius will forgive, he won't dare," and hope for forgiveness still lived in her heart. In despair, she rushed to her friends and relatives, begging them to intervene, to save her from her inevitable fate. But everyone around her, even her mother, even those she trusted, turned away from her. No one extended a helping hand. No one wanted to stand up for her. In the end, she was completely alone, without support, without hope. Only in the evening, when soldiers headed to her house, did everything become clear. They were led by Narcissus, a man who, by order of the authorities, decided to act quickly while she still had a chance to negotiate with Claudius. But death came to her suddenly and mercilessly. Soon after the soldiers entered the house, a noise of struggle erupted. Armed men, cold and emotionless, surged forward. Messalina screamed, wept, begged for mercy, in despair trying to cling to the walls, the doors, to life itself. Sources report that she was even offered to slit her own throat, one of the most revered methods of a dignified exit from life in those times. In Rome, it was believed that such an end was the ultimate display of dignity, an honest conclusion to life in the face of inevitable death. But she, the woman who staged grand orgies before crowds, who married her lover while her husband was still alive, and who laughed at the laws and rules of the state, proved weaker than her passions at the very last moment. She could not raise the knife to her throat, could not perform this act of dignity as it was then understood. With trembling hands, she fell to her knees, whispering, "Spare me," and all her hope for salvation, for mercy, vanished along with her tears and pleas. Then one of the soldiers, unable to withstand her desperate cries and tears, did what was prescribed. He plunged a cold blade into her throat. Thus ended the life of Messalina, once the most desired and powerful woman of Rome, a woman whose image remained forever in history. She was only 25 years old. The next morning, the entire city was filled with rumors and gossip. Some admired her as a seductress and a traitor. An inevitable and important question arises. How much of what we hear truly reflects reality? Yes, Messalina was young, beautiful, and possessed a vivid desire for pleasure, which made her image striking and memorable. It is obvious that she loved intimacy and passionately sought enjoyment, for rumors about her nocturnal amusements did not arise out of nowhere. However, a careful look behind the veil of these speculations and rumors reveals that her image was not merely the product of malicious gossip or fabricated tales. Her enemies and detractors played a role in its creation and dissemination. In ancient Rome, women were not forgiven for wielding power, beauty, or moral freedom, especially if they were close to the emperor or held influential positions. Messalina was not only a woman inclined to entertainment, she participated in political life. She had supporters and opponents. She could influence the emperor's decisions, control wealth, and grant or revoke privileges for her close associates. It is quite possible that she used her power to eliminate rivals, which irritated senators and courtiers accustomed to a certain hierarchy and tradition. For these men, it was humiliating to realize that some young woman could easily manipulate the situation, subjugating men through her sexuality. This became the reason for launching a campaign to defame, slander, and humiliate her. She was called the greatest prostitute, accused of competing with street priestesses of love, of accepting dozens of men in a single night, of having wild and boundless intimate relations. She was blamed for arranging a marriage with her lover while her husband, the emperor, was on the throne. Perhaps some of these accusations were true, perhaps exaggerated or entirely fabricated. But one thing is clear, her name became a powerful weapon. It is important to remember that all sources about Messalina were written by men for whom women with power and moral freedom were dangerous and provocative beings. These men often harbored hatred toward women because their own perception of promiscuity served as a convenient label to strip women of their merits and portray them as monsters. It is worth pondering. In the same Rome, men regularly held orgies, and their escapades were considered normal. Emperors, senators, wealthy nobles. Their debauched entertainments were part of public life. Their behavior did not evoke condemnation, but rather approval or indifference. Yet a woman who allowed herself the same was instantly turned into a monster. This obvious double standard in attitudes toward men and women clearly demonstrates how society perceived female freedom. Messalina died young. She was only 25. But her name became a symbol, an image that did not fade with her death. In the Middle Ages, her image began to be used to denote women who were considered accessible or promiscuous. They were called Messalinas to emphasize their free and provocative lifestyle. In literature and theater, her image persisted for centuries, always serving as an embodiment of a lascivious, greedy, and mad woman. She was turned into a legend, but, importantly, a legend filled with vice and perversion. And the most astonishing paradox is that the more her reputation was tarnished, the stronger her image became. Her depravity and her free spirit aroused intense curiosity and secret admiration among the public. Men who wrote about her depravity often experienced subconscious sexual attraction to this image, to this portrayal. Their words were a mixture of condemnation and secret admiration, a manifestation of forbidden desires combined with revulsion. That is why today, when we question her true identity, we face numerous contradictions. Who was Messalina? A fallen woman? How many times over the years have we encountered the same word when talking about a woman who dared to choose a life filled with freedom and independence? This word, often tinged with condemnation or contempt, becomes a label designed to destroy her reputation and tarnish her dignity. Remembering Messalina, a woman who died in marble gardens, a symbol of luxury and elegance, it is hard not to admit that her ghost still haunts our thoughts and perceptions. This ghost is nothing but an image of passion, possessing the power to elevate a person, but also capable of destroying everything that has been built. Messalina became an embodiment of desire, which is often unforgiving and unaccepted by society, as passion is perceived as something dangerous and provocative. She is a symbol of a woman who understood early on that power is not only laws, armies, and state structures, but also the strength of the human body, its passionate expressions, and inner freedom. And it is precisely this awareness, this courage to make her own choices and live by her rules, that perhaps explains her eternal presence in the collective memory. So why does her name live through the ages, remaining in the mouths and pages of history? Not as the name of Claudius's wife, an empress whose role was limited to narrow court duties, but as a name that still echoes among those who wish to describe a woman inclined to debauchery, a woman who, in the opinion of many, crossed the boundaries of decency. Messalina, a name associated with the most promiscuous woman of Rome? Or is it the image of a victim of male myths and prejudices imposed by society? This question remains open, and everyone is free to interpret it according to their own views and beliefs. If you found this story interesting and vivid, remember that everything in our world is merely particles of the past that continue to live in our thoughts and legends. In this space where passions, secrets, and tragedies intertwine, there is always room for new discoveries and reflections. Ultimately, all that remains from those distant times are their stories, which continue to resonate today, reminding us that desire, power, and freedom are inherent aspects of human nature.